You think colonization ended when the flags were lowered? How naive. The most brutal colonization didn't happen at ports, plantations, or mines. It happened inside your head. And it's still happening now, as you read this. Frantz Fanon, a Martinican, psychiatrist and revolutionary, discovered something terrifying. The colonizer no longer needs ships or soldiers. He lives inside you, in the way you see yourself in the mirror, in how you judge your own skin, your own accent, your own dreams. You carry the oppressor like a second skin. Think about it. How many times have you wished to be different from what you are? How many times have you looked in the mirror and felt something was wrong? Not with the mirror, with you. When you straightened your hair for the first time. When you pretended not to understand what someone said just to hide your accent. When you felt inferior in front of someone who spoke better than you. That's not your voice speaking. It's the colonizer's voice that learned to speak through you. Fanon wasn't just talking about African or Caribbean countries. He was talking about you. About the immigrant who feels less worthy when facing a native speaker. About the person from the South who hides their origins in New York. About the black woman who relaxes her hair to look more presentable. About the young person from the projects who changes their way of speaking when entering a university. The most subtle violence is the one you don't even notice you're suffering. It's when you become an accomplice to your own oppression. When you believe the problem is with you, not with the system that taught you to hate yourself. It's when you look at your family, your community, your culture, and feel shame instead of pride. You know what's most perverse? You police yourself. You correct your posture before entering an expensive store. You change your voice on the phone when handling something important. You feel like you need to prove you're good people, that you're different from the others. The colonizer planted a chip in your mind, and now that chip works on its own. Fanon spent his life studying this invisible wound. As a psychiatrist in Algeria, he witnessed firsthand what colonial domination did to the human mind, and he discovered that the cure doesn't come from medicine or conventional therapy. It comes from something much more radical. Recognizing the colonizer living inside you and expelling him forever. If you want to understand how this mental prison keeps you chained without chains, stay with me. Because today, you'll discover how colonization turned you into your own jailer. And more importantly, how to break these invisible shackles you didn't even know existed. Like this video if you've ever felt this discomfort. And stay until the end. Because the liberation Fanon proposes goes far beyond what you imagine. The system sold you the most beautiful lie ever created, that you live in a meritocracy, that if you work hard enough, speak well enough, dress appropriately enough, you'll be accepted, you'll belong, you'll finally be seen as equal. This is the colonial myth in its purest form, the idea that the problem isn't the system, it's you. You just need to try harder, be better, more polite, more educated, more acceptable. Look around you. Every day, millions of people wake up believing they need to earn their right to exist with dignity. The black executive who speaks twice, as clearly as everyone else in meetings. The Latino who anglicizes his name on his resume. The woman who straightens her natural texture to look professional. All of them playing a game where the rules were written by someone else, for someone else. Fanon called this sociogenic trauma. The psychological damage caused not by individual experiences, but by the very structure of society. You internalize racism, classism, cultural superiority, not because you chose to, but because you had to survive. The system trained you to see yourself through the colonizer's eyes. And here's the cruelest part, it works. You start believing that European features are more beautiful, that certain accents sound more intelligent, that some cultures are more civilized than others. You begin to measure your worth using a ruler that was designed to make you fail. The Tatis myth whispers, If you just assimilate enough, if you just distance yourself enough from those people, you'll make it. But making it means what exactly? Becoming acceptable to those who never should have had the power to judge you in the first place. This isn't about individual prejudice. This is about a system so sophisticated that it convinced you to oppress yourself, to see your own reflection and feel disgust, to hear your own voice and feel shame, to know your own history and feel embarrassment. The colonial education taught you that civilization began when Europeans arrived. That progress means abandoning your primitive ways. That success looks exactly like the colonizer, and anything else is failure. But what if I told you that this entire framework is a lie? That the standards you're desperately trying to meet were created specifically to exclude you? That the game was rigged from the start, and the only way to win is to stop playing by their rules? Fanon saw this clearly in Algeria. The French didn't just want to control the land. They wanted to control minds, to make Algerians believe that being French was superior to being Algerian, to make them hate their own culture, their own language, their own skin. The same process happens everywhere. The colonizer doesn't need to be physically present anymore. He lives in your Instagram feed, in your job interviews, in your dating preferences, in your parenting choices. He's the voice that tells you that you're not enough. Not because it's true, but because a system needs you to believe it. You're living in a psychological cage so sophisticated that you decorated it yourself. You painted the bars, chose the lock, and convinced yourself it's protection, not imprisonment. This is what Fanon called the most insidious form of control, when the oppressed becomes the guardian of their own oppression. Picture this. You're a bird born in captivity. You've never seen the sky, never felt the wind beneath your wings. The cage is all you know. When someone opens the door, you don't fly out. You huddle in the corner, terrified. The outside world seems dangerous, unknown, wrong. The cage feels safe, familiar, home. This is your mind on colonialism. You've been conditioned to fear your own freedom. Every morning you wake up and perform a ritual of self-denial. You check yourself in the mirror, not to appreciate what you see, but to fix what's wrong. You rehearse conversations in your head, not to express your truth, but to sound acceptable. You choose your clothes, your words, your very posture based on an invisible audience that judges everything you do. The prison has no walls because it doesn't need them. You carry it with you everywhere. In job interviews, you unconsciously code switch, speaking in ways that feel foreign to your mouth. On dating apps, you select photos that make you look safer, more palatable. In social situations, you laugh at jokes that hurt your soul, staying silent when you should speak up. Fanon watched this phenomenon destroy minds in Algeria. Patients came to him suffering from what appeared to be individual mental illness. But he recognized something deeper, a collective trauma caused by living in a world that systematically devalued their existence. They weren't sick. They were responding normally to an abnormal situation. The prison manifests differently for everyone, but the mechanism is the same. The working-class student who feels like an imposter in university, the immigrant who apologizes for their accent instead of celebrating their multilingualism, the person of color who straightens their hair, lightens their skin, changes their name, not because they want to, but because the world punished them for being themselves. You know what's truly diabolical. The system convinced you that this prison is freedom, that having the choice to assimilate is liberation, that being allowed to participate in your own erasure is progress. You think you're free because you can choose which chains to wear. But here's what Fanon understood that most people miss. The cage isn't just individual, it's collective. Every time you police yourself, you're also policing others like you. Every time you distance yourself from your community to gain acceptance elsewhere, you're reinforcing the system that keeps everyone trapped. The most painful prison is the one where you become complicit in your own captivity, where you start believing that the bars are there for your own good, where you fear freedom more than oppression because freedom requires you to confront the truth. You were never inferior. The system was just designed to make you believe you were. Now comes the moment of reckoning. Frantz Fanon didn't just diagnose the disease, he performed surgery on the colonial mind itself. And what he found inside will shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself. In his groundbreaking work, Black Skin, White Masks, Fanon exposed the most devastating truth of colonialism. It doesn't just steal your land or your resources. It steals your ability to see yourself as human. It fragments your psyche so completely that you become a stranger to yourself, forever trying to become someone else. Fanon called this racial epidermal schema, the moment when you realize that your skin, your features, your very existence is seen as a problem to be solved. It's that childhood moment when you first understand that the world sees you differently, not as an individual, but as a representative of everything society has taught people to fear or despise. But here's where Fanon's genius becomes clear. He understood that this wasn't a personal failing. This was systematic psychological warfare. Every colonized person suffers from what he termed sociogenic disorders, mental health issues caused not by individual trauma, but by living in a society structured around your dehumanization. Listen to this. Fanon wrote, "The colonized is elevated above his jungle status in proportion to his adoption of the mother country's cultural standards." Do you feel that knife twisting? The system literally measures your worth by how well you can imitate your oppressor. Your humanity is conditional on your ability to deny yourself. In The Wretched of the Earth, Fanon went even deeper. He revealed that decolonization isn't just political, it's fundamentally psychological. You can remove the colonial government, but if the colonial mindset remains, you've changed nothing. The real revolution happens in the mind. This is why representation isn't enough. This is why having successful people who look like you doesn't automatically free you. Because if those successful people achieved their success by adopting the colonizers' values, by distancing themselves from their own communities, by playing by rules designed to exclude others like them, then they're not examples of liberation. They're examples of sophisticated oppression. Fanon understood something that still terrifies power structures today. The colonized person who truly decolonizes their mind becomes dangerous. Not violent dangerous, ideologically dangerous, because they stop seeking approval from systems that never intended to accept them. They stop trying to prove their humanity to people who profit from denying it. The revelation is this: you are not broken, you are not inferior, you are not the problem. You are the product of a system so sophisticated that it convinced you to participate in your own oppression while calling it choice, freedom, opportunity. But once you see the cage, you can never unsee it. Once you understand that the voice in your head criticizing everything about you isn't your voice, it's the colonizer's voice that you've internalized, everything changes. The shame transforms into rage. The self-hatred becomes revolutionary clarity. Fanon knew that this awakening is terrifying because it means admitting that everything you've been told about merit, success, and belonging is a lie designed to keep you trapped. But it's also liberating because lies, no matter how sophisticated, cannot survive contact with truth. This is the moment everything falls apart. The moment when you realize that the person you think you are is not actually you. It's a carefully constructed performance designed to survive in a system that was never meant for you. You're standing at the edge of an abyss now. On one side is the comfortable lie you've lived with your entire life. The version of yourself that learned to shrink to apologize, to constantly prove your worth to people who were never qualified to judge it. On the other side is a truth so raw it burns. You have been living as a refugee in your own skin. This is what Fanon called the lived experience of blackness, but it applies to anyone who has ever been othered by dominant power structures. It's the moment when you realize that every day of your life, you've been performing a version of yourself that isn't really you. You've been method acting in a play you never auditioned for, following a script written by people who see you as a problem to be managed. Feel that panic rising in your chest? That's not anxiety, that's recognition. Your nervous system is finally acknowledging what your mind has been denying. You've been living in a state of constant hypervigilance, constantly monitoring yourself, constantly adjusting your behavior to make others comfortable with your existence. You're not paranoid when you feel like you're being watched. You are being watched. Every space you enter, every conversation you have, every opportunity you pursue, you're being measured against standards that were specifically designed to exclude you. And the most insidious part, you internalize those standards so completely that you started measuring yourself. But here's what's happening right now in this moment. You're experiencing what Fanon called disalienation, the painful process of recognizing the colonizer living in your head and beginning to evict him. It feels like dying because, in a way, it is. The false self that you've been protecting is being exposed as a survival mechanism, not your true identity. This is terrifying because it means confronting everything you've accepted as normal. The way you change your voice in professional settings, the way you feel grateful for scraps of recognition from systems that should never have had the power to withhold them. The way you've distanced yourself from your own community to gain access to spaces that tolerate you, but never truly accept you. You're realizing that you've been playing a rigged game your entire life, working twice as hard for half the recognition, constantly proving your humanity to people who profit from questioning it, celebrating small victories in a system designed for your failure while calling it progress. The crisis is this: if you're not who you thought you were, then who are you? If the goals you've been chasing were never really yours, what do you actually want? If the approval you've been seeking comes from people whose opinions shouldn't matter, what does your own opinion sound like? Fanon knew this moment would be brutal. He wrote, "Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. But cognitive dissonance is not your enemy. It's your liberation alarm. It's your psyche's way of telling you that the lie is breaking down, that truth is biting its way to the surface, that the real you is trying to be born. The person you've been is fighting for survival, but the person you actually are is fighting for freedom. The revolution begins the moment you stop trying to prove you belong in spaces that were never designed for you and start creating spaces where you don't need permission to exist." Fanon understood what most people still refuse to accept. True decolonization is not about gaining access to the colonizer's world. It's about remembering that you never needed their validation in the first place. It's about unlearning the lie that their approval equals your worth. It's about recognizing that the system that taught you to hate yourself is the same system that needs your self-hatred to survive. This is not about becoming anti-anything. This is about becoming pro-you, the real you, the you that exists before society told you who you should be. The you that doesn't need to code switch, doesn't need to minimize themselves, doesn't need to apologize for taking up space in a world that belongs to all of us. Fanon wrote, "Each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it, in relative opacity. Your mission is not to become acceptable to systems of oppression. Your mission is to become so authentically yourself that you inspire others to remember who they are too. The moment you stop seeking approval from people who were never qualified to give it, you become dangerous to every system that depends on your compliance. When you refuse to measure your worth using rulers designed for your failure, you break the machine. When you love yourself despite every message telling you not to, you commit the most radical act possible in a world built on your self-hatred. This doesn't mean the external world will change overnight. Racism will still exist. Classism will still exist. Systems of oppression will still function, but you will be free from their psychological grip. You will move through the world as yourself, not as a performance designed to make others comfortable. The colonizer in your head is not your friend. He never was. He's a parasite that has been feeding on your potential, your joy, your authentic self-expression. The moment you recognize him, you can begin the process of eviction. And once he's gone, you'll discover something beautiful. The person you actually are was worth protecting all along. Fanon didn't just want individual liberation, he wanted collective awakening. He understood that your freedom and everyone else's freedom are connected. When you stop policing yourself, you stop policing others. When you refuse to participate in systems of ranking human worth, you help dismantle those systems for everyone. This is your moment of choice. You can close this video and return to the comfortable prison of seeking approval from people who profit from your insecurity, or you can begin the difficult, beautiful work of becoming who you actually are. If this message lit something on fire inside you, don't let it burn out alone. Share this video. Someone in your life is still trapped in the psychological cage that you're beginning to escape. They need to know that the bars aren't real, that the lock was always in their hands, that freedom is not only possible, it's their birthright. Subscribe if you're ready to keep digging deeper into the lies that keep us trapped and the truths that set us free. Because Fanon was right, the most important revolution is the one that happens in your mind. And it starts now.